everyone, welcome back to Gamehole Con 2021. We are live here with Demiplane, and we're going to do a little interview with some friends. First, I'm Satine Phoenix, and my friends are here from D4. Please introduce yourselves and your social media handles.
Okay, I am Dustin Fletcher, and I am at D4 Dustin F on all socials.
Hey everybody, I'm Devan Henderson, and Devin is not here on Twitter because I don't really tweet that much.
But you are here right now.
But you're
I am right
You're
here.
here right now.
Right here.
So here we're talking about gaming, and you guys are doing something pretty incredible. You are double dungeon masters for a live stream, no less. It's already hard enough to game master as one person, and then as two, but on live stream. So tell us a little bit about your show.
We like to call ourselves Jaeger pilots. We share one brain cell, not one brain.
Yep. We started D4, and funny enough, D4 is kind of a joke because it's Dustin and Devin play Dungeons and Dragons, and that's where D4 came from.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
That's great.
And so and we just decided to, hey, we co-ran a LARP together for 10 years and decided, why don't we try this doing that format to the tabletop side of things.
Very similar storytelling styles, and we just kind of fed off of each other. And it's like being in a writer's room, and then having ideas is a lot easier to bounce off of other people. So
it's like a bromance.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
It's
heterosexual life partner.
100%.
Oh, I
Yep.
love that. That's so cool. All right, so just so everyone knows, this is every Sunday.
Yeah, every Sunday at 4 p.m. Pacific time, 7 p.m. Eastern time. It's on twitch.tv/rockpunchatl. We are a long-form narrative show, so we don't have seasons. It's just been one long season of a continuous story arc.
We do take December off, and we try and leave it on a big cliffhanger. So if you want to say we're seasons, it's a year.
Yeah. We're going into season 3.
Yeah.
Our 3rd year anniversary will be in January.
Oh, congratulations.
Thank you.
It's
yeah.
Really awesome. So it's 3 years. You have this massive story. Now, I'm a professional storyteller. You're professional storytellers. How do you write something like this?
A long time ago, we started with Waterdeep Dragon Heist because this man went out to D&D Live, had a blast, met all of the people.
I know, that's where I first met you.
And he came back with this fire, and he's like, dude, we have to run this. It's going to be super awesome. It's very similar to the LARP we ran, and we can do all of this stuff. And I was like, I don't know, maybe. And he's like, we'll keep it real low-key. And then a lot of people were like, let's do it. And we're like, well, I guess we're doing it now.
Yep. It was like the initial idea was like, we'll just, we'll throw some webcams up. It'll just be us playing at a table. It'll be fine. It'll be super low key.
And then?
And then we just started talking to people, and it kept growing and growing. And we're like, oh shit, well now we got to put our,
money where our mouth is.
Yeah, and just be like, okay.
I'm going to get Hollywood on you.
Yeah.
So what's the log line?
Yeah.
What's your log line for this story? Tell me the story. You got 2 seconds, 1 sentence, 2 sentences.
Roll for sanity.
Oh, that's good. I'm interested.
Yeah.
I'd
So
watch that.
in the DMG, there's an extra ability stat that's like you can add to your game, which is sanity, and we're like, oh, that's really awesome. A lot of times in D&D, it's wisdom saving throws, and
for a madness effect and things like that.
But your mind isn't just your wisdom; it's also your intelligence. You're able to discern what is happening, and whenever you're looking at an elder evil, typically in like a Call of Cthulhu game, what drives you into the depths of all of the things that can warp your mind is because your brain can't comprehend what it's seeing.
And so we introduced a 7th saving throw, which is sanity, which is an average of your wisdom and intelligence modifier, and to kind of help build that, because we're very cosmic horror based, and a lot of just horror in general. Devin and I, we love tragic horror stories. We're tragic horror storytellers, and so we love that aspect of, the journey that the characters go on, not just to save the world, but them themselves as characters, from where they begin to where they are at the end, when it could be the end of everything. That's what we love to tell and we love to do.
Yeah, we like to push immersion. Bleed is another word for it that we really get into. When you stop being a player playing a character and you become your character, and there's that line that you cross that it's all one, and you're automatically in your character's head, and you are that character. And a lot of games do it in the sense of when you're having fun and it feels kind of like a video game in the fight and stuff like that, and then the bad guy kills one of the other players, and all of a sudden it becomes very real and personal, and you stop thinking like, oh, what do I do? It's like
The bad guy
now I'm
kills one of
hurt.
the characters.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but we do it more so in like emotional ways and building stories that way. And
it can be any emotion: happiness, sadness, fear, any emotion that the player themselves feel that their character is feeling. I've done my job as a storyteller, and that means I'm telling a compelling story where the immersion is so real that you step away from a table and you're actually there.
But going off of that, if you are playing a game like that, please check in with your players. If make sure you talk about lines, veils, things like that, because when you do bleed into that character, things become real.
Yeah. And we wanted to be upfront with our players. Our cast is phenomenal. We are so lucky to have the cast that we have. There are times where we'll just sit back and they steal the show and just...
Let me put it in perspective. So Dragon Heist is a level 1 to 5 campaign, and I've heard people completing it in
a weekend.
Yeah, a weekend, and some like really getting into it, like 8-10 sessions. 97 sessions it took us
to get through
because of their role playing, also all of the other world lore and stuff we put into it, and incorporating their backstories and things like that. Of course, extended it, but it is a lot of content. But it was amazing ride along the way, and we're continuing on with our own narrative past that.
Oh wow! So now, did you kind of continue down the route of Dragon Heist, or did you say, you know what, we're going to just shift in a completely different direction?
So we took Dragon Heist and we started putting in our own puzzle pieces early on, that kind of those threads of the spider web that just kind of will untangle and become whole as they go on, and kind of fed that into the Dragon Heist story itself, because it was such an incredible book. And after, like I said, coming off of the Streets of Waterdeep from Stream of Many Eyes, it's definitely something that we always wanted to do an urban campaign and not just a
you're out in the woods surviving.
Yeah. And so it was really cool to do an urban campaign, and so it was just a lot of fun to do that and put those little Easter eggs in. And so now that we're into our own narrative of the Forgotten Realms, and that's another thing that we try to be the most canon to Forgotten Realms lore.
Oh wow!
Yeah, we so much research. We even have conferences with Ed Greenwood and Chris Perkins and all of that to make sure, like, hey, we're kind of thinking about doing this. What is the lore? There's a little bit of vagueness here, just so that all of those people that have read the books or other campaigns from other earlier editions and be like, I know what that is, and it's really fun when they know what is probably veiled behind our story, because they're like, oh, I know what's about to happen.
Yeah, and we even throw in like Easter eggs from like one-off 1980s video games that throw in, like, we just have fun with that, and it's just a lot of fun to put those little Easter eggs for those fans that are just like super fans and can see it and go, I cannot believe you just referenced that.
Yeah,
and that's a lot of fun.
No one remembers that. I'm like, oh yeah, it's there.
Mm-hmm.
So are you writing it like South Park writes it, where you're just like writing it week by week, or do you plan out ahead of time? I mean, you did talk about dosing some information, but after those 90 episodes, you got to do it on your own. So what are your story arcs and story development look like?
There's big story beats, right? And then, however, it's not very sandboxy because it's mainly focused around Waterdeep. Now it's starting to spread since we're out of Dragon Heist. But you have the big story beats, and then you have the medium story beats. And then one of the things that we do, that I advise all DMs to do, as I said, talk to your players. Also, ask them, hey, how's your character feeling? What do they want to do? What are your character's goals for this week? What are your future goals? And then you can start implementing their own personal storylines that they're coming up with, and integrate your information into that, so that it feels like their choices really mattered and what they wanted to do, and they're part of the storytelling team as well.
And we ask them every week, hey, especially after a session that, like, big thing, plot reveals happen, is like, hey, has anything happened this week? Change your motivations. Has anything happened where are you still happy with the direction you're going with your character, and things like that, just to kind of help them feed the story and make sure that we're all telling the story we want to tell together.
That being said, because of their micro decisions, that will change the medium story points, and which can also change the big story points. And so having a co-writer I'm like, oh man, I'm super stumped on this, and like, here's the idea I'm kind of floating with, and he's like, well, yes and, or no but. And it's like being in a writer's room. We just feed off each other.
Bounce ideas off of each other.
multiple times, they have finished each other's sandwiches. It's been amazing to watch. You guys, we joked about it earlier today, and I'm watching it live. It's great. So you talk a lot about characters. How did you find your players?
A little bit of everything. So one of our players is Dustin's cousin.
Yep. So Rhea Sunshine is my cousin, and she played in, before we started D4, I did like a 3-year Out of the Abyss campaign, and she was in it, and I watched her grow up to teach her how to play D&D and all that, and just phenomenal role player, phenomenal. You ask her, she says that I only chose her because she cries at the drop of a hat. That may be true, but no, she's phenomenal, and she's incredible, and the passion that she puts behind her characters is, I mean, it's just incredible.
Ethan and Goblin are from LARPing.
We LARPed with them, and just seeing what they did and the amount of passion that they bring into their LARP characters, and just being able to just turn things on and off and able to switch into even NPCs and their characters. We're just like, okay, yeah, we definitely want that energy.
And as we were talking earlier about Bleed, looking for players that can get into that, but also be comfortable with that and kind of mesh with our storytelling style.
Yep.
But also can get into their character and deliver a great performance, and all of our players can.
Yeah, and that's Ethan Mansour and Goblin Katie, or Katie Downey. Just absolutely phenomenal. Katie Adkins, we worked with in the film industry. She was an actress. We worked together on a Cartoon Network movie years ago. And then
she's
Ethan, also
from Too Many Cooks.
Yeah, if you've ever seen Too Many Cooks, she's the one of the killer chases in that. But Ethan had worked with her as well.
I just remembered that. That was really funny.
Yeah, and so she has such a fun energy about her, and just brings this bubbly personality, but at the same time, like the emotional.
When she shines, she's sometimes the brightest in the room. There are moments where we know what's happening, like the story, and then there was a time where a player met an unfortunate end. Their character passed, and the scene that played out from her emotion was very raw, very real, very visceral.
Yeah, just an incredible actress, and
so good.
And then our final player, Patrick Logan, is an improv actor out of Atlanta, and we actually played in a home Star Wars game together, where we played as players, and then he took over for the third campaign as the DM, and so we just knew from that was like he'll mesh in perfectly, and the type of player that just comes up with ideas that you're just like, I would have never thought of that, and throws curveballs and fun things like that, and just keeps things interesting and
constantly shaping the story. Eventually, he may control Waterdeep. We don't know. He's so good at like character or manipulation and stuff like that. Of like, I'm going to speak with you. I'm going to make you think that you're awesome, but I'm also tearing you down. And these are the NPCs, but he's like using them to get at the true evils of Waterdeep, like the Xanathar and Zentarum and stuff like that. So it's really cool to see that. But all of our players shine all the time.
Yeah, it's just the incredible role players, improvers, and actors that we've been fortunate to get out of Atlanta. Like we're all local to Atlanta, and everybody is based out of there. And and even like Logan, who's this, just you look at him as he plays Voss, his character, and he's like manipulative and dark, and just like you're just like God. And then you watch his like D&D Beyond ad reads, and it's like, oh, you're a goofball. You're a goofball. And then or he'll play a one shot. He ran a one shot that was literally kobolds going into a hole. That was the most slapstick fun ever, and
it was the kobolds in the holebald.
Kobolds in the holebald, and it just shows the range that our cast has, and we're just fortunate.
You guys were LARPers, are LARPers, but what is it like playing with other LARPers at the table? I mean, you guys I assume you're usually moving around, and there's a bit of mobility and animation to you.
It was a slight learning curve, especially at home tables. You want to get up and stand up and walk around the table and kind of
having to train yourself to be in front of a camera, forget that the camera's there, we're all, at least Devin and I, we're behind the scenes people. We're not usually in front of a camera, especially when we started D4. Like that was really our first time just to be in front of a camera, and so, but I mean, once it gets going, it's not there.
Yeah, and you're just having fun with your friends again, and stuff like that. It was a little different being like, okay, I have to stay in my seat, and that's it. But
Yeah, and it's still, you know, they'll still get animated and they'll still, you know, but I can't even think like where I've seen
They've
that
adapted.
Yeah, but it was a pretty quick adaptation. I don't think I've ever, there was a couple where I'm like, oh man, I'm really worried about this player. I think they might get up but never, like they were just phenomenal, like from the get-go.
So good. Love them all.
Incredible.
So we're going to transition a little bit. You guys are double dungeon masters.
Yes.
And for those who've never seen the show, what does that look like?
Well, for us, it's very specific. There's different styles of dual DMing or co-DMing. There's the most typical, whereas there's the story and role player versus the mechanics person.
Yeah, one person is telling the story while the other one is just doing all stats, all mechanics, all rules, everything like that.
Another version is they're both players and DMs, and they kind of switch back and forth.
Depending on the seasons or the
arcs and stuff like that.
Yeah, we're 50-50 across the board. We do everything from like planning, writing, to even role-playing. You know, like if we're reading our descriptors, and there's like a dialogue or an NPC that's coming up that, you know, we'll be like, okay, you take that NPC, and so I'll read the descriptors so he can immediately go into dialogue, and then I'll take the descriptors and so on.
You know there's a differentiation of like, okay, this is narrative, and this is conversation. But also what's amazing, probably the best thing about co-DMing is there's two NPCs that the players are talking to, and they're talking to each other and the NPCs at the same time. You don't have to put on two voices and, you know, try and keep up with, you know, two people's thought processes in the middle of talking to players.
And it's really great to have that person to play off of, and, you know, just to be able to do that. I mean, like early on when I think it really like clicked, like, oh, this is gonna work. Like there was like a scene where they like kicked in the door and there was these like elderly gnomes, and, you know, to get to play off of each other and like like, you know, cradle into each other from like just being scared. And I was like, okay, this is gonna work.
That was one of the most LARPy moments because we were like jumped on each other completely, didn't even think about law of mics or
probably
anything.
blew out the mics, you know.
So there's that kind of learning curve. But now what's amazing is even in situations where we're either thrown for a loop or didn't see something, or players are like, oh, I have this wild idea, and one of us is stumbling, the other one will just fill in, and it's like, oh, yes and stuff like
just
that.
play off of each other. Very yes and. We have to be yes and. I mean, we are one brain cell, so we are pretty good at understanding where each other's going. But there are times where I'll say something or he'll say something. I was like, I have no idea where you were going with that, and we just got to play off of each other and go in that direction.
A lot of trust.
When we're in studio, you know, we have a piece of paper and we can write a note down real quick and, hey, this is what I'm thinking. Since we've been remote, there are pros and cons to both. One of the pros is like, mute the mic. Hey, let's have a conversation real quick.
Let's talk about what we're doing.
When we go back to studio, we'll have to relearn 2 years.
But it's also good because, like, let's say a player has a question, the story can continue as like I'll answer a question while Devan is continuing with the story and the narrative, so it doesn't slow things down. It keeps the story going and things like that.
Yeah, and for mechanics and stuff like that, one person can be controlling map, and one person can be keeping up with math, and
that'd be amazing,
and stuff like that. That is where we kind of step on each other's toes probably the most. Is if someone's paying attention to the map and moving stuff, they won't hear one of the So that's one of the times where we have to really be communicative.
Yep. And like, oh, got it. So it's now their turn, or they did this, they took that much, yada yada yada, things like that. But yeah, I've done, you know, single DMing stuff after that, and I definitely am like, oh man, I wish I had someone else up here to help me with this, because it is definitely a boon to have that extra set of hands.
Something you were saying is trust, and 100%, but we have the 10 years of working with each other to build that trust. There are times that we disagree, but we typically save it to talk about like, okay, this is what happened, how can we take that mistake and work it into the narrative?
Yeah, how do we fix it to make narrative sense? Yeah, because we're all humans. No one's perfect, and
well, people don't talk about that part. So one of the best parts of being human is being able to overcome obstacles, and it's a relationship, right? Like a good relationship that has a healthy way of overcoming these obstacles and confronting one another. What is that like for you guys, and what advice would you give to other people who are obviously going to butt heads at some point?
Listen to each other, I think, is the biggest one, because I mean, at the end of the day, we're gonna have our own ideas, and to be able to take that and just be like, okay, I don't understand what you did here, but why did you do it? Okay, here's why I did it. Here's what I was thinking. And then the other person can, oh, okay, well, this is what I was thinking. And then you can, okay, well, how do we merge the two?
Yeah. Or, okay, that's not what I would have done, but now that that's set in stone, here's how we can move forward so that, you know, we're both happy. It's all communication skills, honestly. And there are some times where we get a little snippy and we're just like, and then we're like, you know what? Sorry. Let's talk about this.
Yeah, 100%.
And, I mean, because it's real
you guys
communication.
can learn something from them. This is really valuable.
And you know, sometimes we need to break it. Like, okay, well, just let me think about it. And but we just come back to the table. Like, okay, cool. This is what happened. How can we move forward? And then sometimes, even if we're not 100% happy in the moment, we're like, oh, I didn't think about it, because later you have the time to sit back and be like, you got to take ego out of it.
Yeah,
is 100%. Ego will be the downfall for all relationships if you don't communicate.
All relationships. Yeah. Exactly.
So, like you said, listen, communication, and understanding.
So I have another question about the game, but before that, I want to like prompt it with, what do you each do for a living? Because that's going to kind of feed into this next question.
We both work in the film industry. I am a set specialty costumer and ager dyer. I dress superheroes and monsters for a living is basically the best way to describe it.
A shop specialty costumer and ager and dyer. So I make all the stuff and fix all the stuff, and he puts it on the actors.
Yep.
That is so cool. So speaking of making, this is my question that was kind of leading up to, is you guys make your sets.
We do.
Yeah, including the studio we built from scratch, and also the small miniature terrains, we hand build those. That was one of our focuses.
Yeah, one of the things that we wanted to do was custom make all of our maps for just about every encounter and that's one of the good things about communicating with the players that we're saying, because like, okay, we know what direction they're going to go, so we know what map that we need to start building. But there will be times where
we'll make something and spend a lot of hours on it. The very few hours that we have in our time, and then they're like, "Oh, by the way, we're going to completely subvert that."
Because players are going to do what players do.
But we typically either just change some things around and use it as a build for something else.
Or eventually they'll redirect back to that, and they'll eventually get there. But there's definitely been times where we'll make maps and be like, "Well, that was fun."
And one of the reasons why we did that is because everybody loves all of the terrain building companies out there. Like Dwarven Forge is amazing. Go watch them when they're here, I think tomorrow. And there's sets and stuff like that, but not everybody can afford that. It's understandable. And so we try and make everything out of very affordable materials.
Yeah, a lot of the stuff that we build comes from the dollar store.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Or the local hardware store. Mm-hmm. And we try to just build everything as much as we can. We'll 3D print things that we need to here and there, but a lot of the stuff we custom build out of, foam core and styrofoam and other things like that, just to kind of give that look, but at a nice, reasonable rate.
What you save in money, you pay for in time.
Yeah,
yes,
100%. Absolutely. Yeah. The boon and benefit from using the modular terrain is you can you spend 2 hours putting it together, and they don't get there, and you're like, oh well, I'll just take it apart and put it in something else. Whereas when we don't get to, we have a massive map that is like, well, that's a shelf display now.
Yeah.
Do you guys film that?
We'll do like a time lapse that we'll do of our builds and things like that, and then we're
thinking about doing things for the future where people can possibly watch us give DM tips on how to make things
and do things like that. But yeah, we'll at least especially our big builds, we'll put up a time lapse so you can at least see the process of how we do it in 5 hours into 3 minutes.
Yeah.
That's amazing. So before we wrap up, I would like each one of you to share with our audience your GM tips.
GM tips. Man, besides all the ones we just gave, communication and stuff like that.
Those are life tips.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I mean, is it different?
Not really.
The biggest thing is, I'm going to go off communication, but communicate with your players. Making sure that the story that you're telling is one that everyone is telling together, because D&D is not just the DM telling the story, it's the table telling the story.
Yeah.
And so you want to make sure that you're all telling the story that everyone wants to tell together.
I agree, 100%. A lot of times DMs spend so much time focused on the story that they're writing that the players are in the world of, instead of, one of the things about ours, and before we got into the interview, you mentioned something about arcs and things like that, which a lot of other streams do, and it's amazing because it works, it feels concise. Something that we wanted to do is make it feel like a very real world, where in Dragon Heist there was 4 villains you could choose from. We're like, well, all 4 in the city, why can't
not
we
all
make
4?
All 4 happen, and the choices they've made then have spread out into the world and may come back to haunt them or benefit them later on. But it wasn't like, here's this arc, here's this arc, here's this arc. It's kind of like we said, we put the breadcrumbs in the beginning of the bigger arc, and it's kind of more so what I was talking about, the big narrative points, the medium narrative points, and the smaller ones, I guess you could say the smaller ones are arcs, but more so, I like games that feel real and alive, and the choices the players make change that, instead of being like, okay, now here's this storyline and then this story, because it feels like the long narrative is disjointed.
Awesome. We've been talking to the co-dungeon masters of D4. Please tell everyone when it is, where they can watch it, and your socials.
You can watch D4 on Rock Punch ETL or D&D's live stream every Sunday at 7 p.m. Eastern Time or 4 p.m. Pacific Time. I'm Devan Henderson. You can find me at Twitter at Devan is not here. I will probably like something, maybe comment, but I don't tweet.
He really doesn't. He really doesn't. I'm Dustin Fletcher. I'm the other co-DM of D4. What he said, you can find me on all social medias at D4DustinF.
And if you want to find any more information, come find us over at d4dnd.com.
Yep, and D4 socials is at D4DNDRPG. Probably plug that too.
Yes, that one.
Minor details.
Sandwiches. It's all I'm saying, sandwiches. So we are going to watch a really fun game, story told, game mastered by Rob Weiland. And it is the vintage Ghostbusters RPG from West End Games. Rob Weiland is an author, game designer, and professional nerd. You may have seen his work on the Forbes website and the pages of several gaming books, or as the host of Theater of the Mind Players. Today, he's going to be the game master for players such as Tawny Thompson, Ethan, I'm so sorry, I can't, I'm not.
Skip it.
Ethan, skip it.
Ethan, skip it.
New brand, Tony Cheek, Sarah Babe, Jordan Fishburne, and that is going to be up in about 3 minutes. We're going to cut to get everyone settled in and let the audience in. I'm Satine Phoenix. I'm your game master for all the other times. So have a wonderful 3 minutes while you wait. We're going to be on.
Be excellent to each other.
May you always roll with advantage.